Comic-Con! Whether it's your MCMs, your Acmes, your PAXs, your Rycons, whatever, the convention scene is more alive and more vibrant than it ever has been. And that's great. I love conventions. I myself have been going to conventions for over a decade now. But one thing I have never done is I have never tried to record it. Now, when people make Comic-Con vlogs, it's always the same thing. They wake up on the first morning, they do a video going, hey guys, I'm gonna go to Comic-Con and, you know, I'm gonna vlog it and that. And then they get to the con and then they're busy buying things, cosplaying, meeting up with their friends, stopping for photos, and they don't record anything. And the vlog is then consists of them getting back to the hotel and going, I'm really tired guys, and sorry I didn't record anything, I'll try and record something tomorrow, see you tomorrow. And you know I did exactly the same thing. So, instead of just being a Comic-Con vlog thing, I'm going to intercut with these bits where I've scripted stuff out and pre-recorded, and instead, my cat is eating the cable for the camera, one sec. You are a problem. You have to stop. I will be out in a moment. You go play. Kids, right? What was I saying? I have a script for this. Yeah, I'll be coming back to my bits after the con where I kind of explain what was going on, talk through the convention, and maybe also give some tips for those who have never been to a con before. Because it's a lot, buddy. Welcome to the MCM Birmingham Comic-Con vlog/vlog tips video that Skye has made because they have ran out of ideas and are creatively bankrupt. Here we go! So we were very lucky that we managed to get some good seats on the train. This was actually the first Comic-Con I've had to travel somewhere for. Most of the Comic-Cons I go to are either in my city or the city just across the way. And because, if you cannot tell from the accent, I live in the UK, most cities just across the way are like an hour away. So it's really not a huge inconvenience to get there. But this was the first one I had to travel for. I had to sit on a train. I had to sit on a train for 6 hours. I can already hear all the American audiences being like, yeah, that's what I do to go get fucking groceries, man. And I'm like, well, you know, it's different here, okay? The country's very small, and we have a different perception of what size is. Don't. But this does make a great segue. Here's my first Comic-Con tip. Book somewhere to stay close to the event. We didn't do that. So, while all of my friends were hanging out in a hotel next to the event, me and Rainer were in an Airbnb a 20-minute drive away. Now, this would be great if either of us drove, but we don't. So we were entirely at the behest of Uber, and Uber is really expensive when you have to get it for every journey. We spent 6 to 7 hours on a train and then spent an additional hour trying to get out of Birmingham because we were in rush hour, and it turns out the convention wasn't actually held in Birmingham city centre but held near Birmingham Airport, which is obviously not in the centre of the city because otherwise you would have a lot of planes flying over people every day. So we spent an hour trying to get out of Birmingham and then another half an hour trying to get back into Birmingham to meet with our friends to eat dinner. And it was a nightmare, and I am so thankful to Rainer, who bankrolled the entire thing, because the Twitch and YouTube ad revenue, they not been paying. You know, maybe if you uploaded videos, they would pay out more. Shut up. I've drank so much coffee before recording this video. So, while I wasn't necessarily prepared for how much traveling I was going to have to do just to get to and from the convention hall, one thing I was prepared for was the fact that I was inevitably going to forget something. It is 7 o'clock in the morning. and I rolled over in bed, realising I forgot to buy any makeup sponges. So I'm on my way to the nearest Tesco's to buy some. I love cosplay. Free them. As this was Reiner's first convention, we had planned a little matching cosplay. We were going to do Solid Snake and Psycho Mantis from Metal Gear Solid. I went with Psycho Mantis because I already had a lot of black leather and harnesses lying around the flat. Don't look into that. And he went with Solid Snake because it's the main character, it's pretty cool, pretty recognizable, and, you know, he already had the hair for it. However, we ran into a problem when about a week or so before the convention, Reiner called me and said, "The costume I bought looks awful, and I don't have the money to buy a replacement." So instead, we just kind of hobbled together a big boss costume from generic outfits and clothing, and honestly, it came out really well. He looks really good. Our cosplays don't necessarily match anymore, but it's kind of a similar theme. And he got recognized, and it was great. It was lovely to see my friend, who is experiencing his first convention, getting recognized for his costume and stopping for photos, and it was all really cool. I did the little pose there. Don't know why I did it. I don't have the props that he had. It was a really cool thing. But it leads me on to my second tip. Don't buy a costume. Well, I mean, you can buy a costume. There's nothing wrong with just buying a pre-done, already made costume. If that's what you want to do, if you don't have the resources or the money to build your own costume, you can just buy one someone else has made. It's fine. There's no wrong way to cosplay unless you're being incredibly offensive to a minority group. Or a creep. Tip number 3, don't be a creep. But going back to tip number 2, a lot of costumes that you get online are not great in quality, and I have found personally that you can build an outfit from miscellaneous things that are close enough that people will still look at it and go, "Oh, you're that guy. Yeah, no, I know that guy. I like that guy. Can I get a photo?" And that's what I did with Psycho Mantis. I very rarely buy full costumes. Instead, I either make them myself, or I buy things piecemeal from charity shops, from online, and I put them together, and the outfit kind of forms around that. And that's a very difficult skill to obtain. It's something that is only obtained through practice, is being able to deconstruct a costume. Now let's deconstruct a costume. Let's look at my Psycho Mantis, for example. He wears what looks like a leathery jumpsuit at his base with big boots. On top of that, he has the harness with a particular pattern, the gas mask and bald head combo, and the gloves covering only 2 of his fingers, probably so he can still access his 1999 iPhone. Now, what I could have done is spent a lot of time and money either getting a leather suit and modifying it or buying one online. But instead, I did something cheaper. I bought a cheap sleeveless turtleneck and leather trousers off of Amazon, some long black gloves which I cut the fingers off of, and a gas mask. Originally I was going to use yellow window tint to replicate the eyes, but they never arrived, so hang on. The door just fell off. Ah! The door fell off. We'll fix that later. Originally, I was going to use yellow window tint in order to get the yellow effect of his eyes, but that never arrived. So I was very lucky, and I was able to use these, which are film lighting gels. So the idea is that, like, you put this over a light and it like changes the color. It's not really working here, but it does work. It does work. So I took some yellow versions of them, cut them up, and just kind of shoved them in the rims of the eyepiece, and it still worked, and it gave me the effect I needed. So that's another thing you can do, is you can also repurpose things you have around the house. Obviously not everyone is going to have film gel lights, because not everyone else films their entire life and tries to make content out of it, but, you know, I'm sure there's something you can use. You can dye cling film? I don't know. This isn't a guide on how to make a Psycho Mantis costume. The other key example of things not necessarily having to be screen accurate is the harness. Psycho Mantis has a very particular harness, but I just kind of wanted to get the general feeling of what his harness looked like. And the main thing for me was having that circle in the chest and the kind of spider web almost pulling out from it. So once I found that, I was pretty satisfied with whatever the rest of the harness looked like. And I also added a coat because it was November in Birmingham, and it's freezing. And I didn't want to walk around with my arms out all the time. I also ditched his big, like, leathery boots. I do own boots like that, but I figured I'm going to be on my feet for 7-8 hours a day, so I went with something comfortable. And that's the other con tip, is to, instead of going with something that necessarily looks good, go with something comfortable. You're going to be on your feet for hours at a time. Get insoles, get, you know, a chance to sit down, get something that allows you to basically relax. If you have big armor pauldrons, make sure that they can be detached so that you can sit down, because if you're going to be stuck on your feet in uncomfortable clothes for 8 hours, you're not going to have a good time. So while Psychomantis wasn't exactly a one-to-one recreation of the character, it was close enough that people could look at it and go, that's Psychomantis. And Reiner and I, as a result, got a lot of attention. We got recognized by an official Metal Gear cosplay group who came up and took photos of us. There were people stopping us as we walked around, be like, oh, can I get a photo of you guys? You look really cool. I've never seen a Psychomantis cosplayer before. And I'm like, yeah. I don't know why. It was actually really hard to research. I only found like 3 other people. Speaking of obscure cosplays, for day 2, me and my friends were doing a semi-planned, semi-accidental group X-Men cosplay. It started when earlier last year, a bunch of us were like, wow, we really like the X-Men. We should do like an X-Men thing. And we kind of semi-planned it out. I went for the most obscure character I could find. You might see there's a theme here. I went with Morph from X-Men 97. I love Morph. Morph is a non-binary shapeshifter who has decided to look like a cross between Voldemort and an egg. And I love that for them. So we get to the convention, and I'm like, okay, my costume's gonna fall apart. This prosthetic's annoying. We're gonna get 4 or 5 hours in. I'm gonna rip it all off my face. Can we go and do some photos now? I want to get some X-Men group photos. And everyone was like, yeah, sure. We'll go out with our friend Lily Togs on Instagram. Huge shout out to them because of what is about to happen. Because it turns out, when you get enough people who are dressed the same to go to the same place, 1, the photos take a really long time to make, and 2, you begin to attract other people who are dressed like that. So we saw a couple of Rogues and Gambits and another Quicksilver. So we called them over and we were like, we're getting some photos done. Do you guys want to join us, do a little like X-Men photo shoot together? And they're like, yeah, we'll do that. And we saw another Nightcrawler and another Rogue and a Wolverine and another Wolverine and a Gambit. And suddenly, our little X-Men photo shoot had grown to a 20+ X-Men unofficial fan meet. Now, Comic-Cons normally have official fan meets. You list them in the app or on the website or on the Facebook page or whatever the convention is using. And there's normally, 4 or 5 photographers who go there and they snap a bunch of pictures of, X-Men cosplayers, single photos, group photos, duo photos, stuff like that. We had one photographer who was just supposed to shoot our photos, and she stepped up. She went, okay, we're doing this. A full X-Men photo shoot. We moved it away from the beach because a bunch of Mandalorian cosplayers came in and there were like 100 of them, and it's like, yeah, we're not winning this fight. And we're also not an official meet. So me and Comac Cosplays, who is a very good friend of mine on Instagram, we went, okay, I guess we're running this. And we ran an X-Men meet off the skin of our pants, basically. And we were like, okay. And it was genuinely a fantastic experience. And that's what Comic-Con is all about. It's about finding people who love the same thing you do and going, this is great. Let's chat about this. Let's hang out. Let's appreciate each other's costumes. Because while I have given some advice for cosplay in this video, one thing I do want to say, and I want to really stress it, there's no wrong way to cosplay. As long as you're not offending anyone and you're not being a creep. Cosplay's about having fun. You can wear a cheap Halloween costume. You can build a costume out of your spare clothes. We call that a closet cosplay. You can buy a £500 replica off of Etsy. You can just, dye your hair blue and call yourself Jinx from Arcane. It's fine. You're just having fun. And as long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. But a day of managing people and taking photos does not make a lot of con experience, so I actually didn't really record all that much. So, on to day 3.
Well, that's not great.
Day 3 is my favorite day of Comic-Cons because it's the day where everyone has gone, oh my god, we've been at this convention for 3 days. And everyone is wearing comfy cosplays, and it's simple things, and it's so much more chill. The vibes are so much more relaxed. And that's what day 3 was for me. I went in a old classic, an 8th Doctor cosplay. The great thing about day 3 is it was so much more relaxed. It's so much more casual. You wear something comfy, and you just kind of hang out. This is the day you buy your stuff, so you're not carrying it around all convention. It's a great time. And yeah, I remembered to record some footage now. So we actually have some footage for me to talk over. But at the end of the day, when people ask me, Skye, why do you do conventions? I often struggle to answer them because, like, you sound like you had a really good time, but also all the stuff you're describing is awful. You're in a cramped space that is somehow too big and too small. You're in makeup that is causing you sensory issues, and the costumes are too tight, and you're constantly on your feet, and there's a guy coming down the other end of Artist's Alley who's in a giant Space Marine armor, and you're like, how am I supposed to get around this? Because it looks really, like, hard, but I bet if I touched it, the whole thing would disintegrate, and I don't want to break this guy's costume because he probably spent fucking 900 hours making it, and oh my god, I just want to buy a pin from the girl over there, please! And honestly, it's some of the best experience I ever have. And I don't understand why. I really didn't until I started to, like, make this video and really think about it. And it's because of the people. I've made so many friends through cosplay and through costumes and this mutual love of stupid things. I went from an itty-bitty teenager dressed in their first Joker costume that they bought online, actually, to a not-so-itty-bitty adult who is still dressing in superhero costumes because it's fun. It's fun. I've done costumes where I have been unrecognizable. I've done Doctor Who costumes. I've done comic costumes. And I've done one costume where a child looked at me, pointed at me across the convention and went, oh my god, it's character. And ran up to me, and I crouched down, and I played as the character, because that kid, for a moment, he wasn't in a convention center with too many people, he wasn't overstimulated by a costume, he was interacting with his favorite character, and you know, as a cosplayer, it's my job to make sure that that's a memorable experience, and that's why I do it, because it's a fun that is difficult to explain, but once you're doing it, you can figure out why people like it. So if you have been on the fence about going to a convention, do it. Just go for a day, make a costume, make something cheap, buy something online, doesn't matter. Go and have fun. Wear a Star Trek shirt and be a member of the Enterprise. Wear a Spider-Man onesie under like some normal clothes and do a Peter Parker. Just go and have fun. That's my advice to you. What's the actual end of this video supposed to be? I never scripted an end. I just improv'd all of that. There's no end in the video. The script just stops. I have to redub some things for the voiceover, and I just forgot to write an ending? My fucking door fell down!